Hey y'all, what's up? It's Dranda Leaves and welcome back to my channel. It has been a year of me growing plants in a more hobbyist capacity versus just having plants dotted throughout my house the way I used to. And I want to tell y'all about all that I've learned in the year that I've had over 100 houseplants. All right, y'all. So I feel like honestly, there are so many of these kinds of videos and each one is going to be very unique to the person. There are going to be some things that kind of overlap. And I'm realizing some lessons that you just kind of got to learn on your own. I just wanted to share because I feel like I've been in a very reflective space and really trying to hone in my collection in the last few months and figure out what I like and grow plants that I like versus just plants that are popular and not just plants that are pretty, because I got a lot of pretty plants, but that doesn't mean that I like growing the plants. But let me not spoil it and let's just go ahead and get into things. I did make a list and I'm gonna just go off this list that I made on this little notepad and share with you all of the things that I've learned. And it's not all things that I would do differently, but just things that I kind of have taken away in this last year of having a larger collection. So I think the first one I want to talk about is the most common learning, and that is to slow down on buying. When you are first getting into houseplants, at least, okay, so I will say for the first year that I grew houseplants, which is not this last year I'm talking about, I had maybe 20-ish plants, and honestly, it was a lot easier to manage because there weren't as many of them. And I think I got like the bug of, oh, I really like this when I had to replace plants after something happened and my plants unfortunately weren't able to be cared for. And I got the bug. I got the bug really bad, right? But I think that one thing I really have learned is that it makes more sense to slow down and buy maybe like one or two of a genus that you want to try out versus like getting 1,000,005 of them. I think that this is evident for me with like Hoyas, with Anthurium, etc. I definitely dove in heavy. And luckily for me, it paid off with the Hoyas and the Anthurium. But when it came to genuses like Philodendron or Calatheas or snake plants, at some point I had a lot of different varieties of snake plants. I have one snake plant left right now. Maybe two snake plants in my living room. And transparently, I don't want any more. Don't want any more. Going from having maybe 15 different varieties of snake plants, like 20 something philodendron, and knowing that I have like 2 snake plants and maybe 5 philodendron, if that really, it might even be 3, truly. It might even really be 3. It's like 3 or 4 philodendron in my house right now. So knowing that I used to have an overwhelming like population of them, I probably should have gotten like one climber and seen how I did with the climber versus having multiple climbers. I think like that's also evidence even on my channel with me getting a bunch of plants to put on poles and then realizing, oh my God, I really do not like pole maintenance, to the point where I have one plant on a pole left, one singular plant. And honestly and truly, it's because that plant has been very rewarding and easygoing, and it hasn't been like no pest magnet, hasn't been like spider mite ridden or anything like that. So I've been able to maintain that monstera. But had I slowed down, I could have saved money on the plants, B, saved money on the supplies for the plants, and then C, just kind of like taking my time with learning what I like. Another reason I will say to slow down with buying is you're not going to be sure what rhythm, you know what I'm saying, you have with taking care of plants, or how, you know what I mean, how you're going to do with taking care of a large amount of plants just because you bought a lot at once. The second thing that I learned is that you're going to kill plants. Yeah. You're going to kill plants. I think that was a more difficult learning for me, because when I initially had like 20 plants, I wasn't struggling. I had like struggled with maybe with a Diffenbachia, but a lot of that probably had to do with the fact that I bought it in a self-watering pot from Lowe's and I was watering it, and that meant it was set up to fail, honestly. And I didn't know at the time, like, oh, you should check the roots and change out the soil and all that. I didn't know all of that at that time. Outside of that, I pretty much did really well. Plants grew for me. They did their thing. You know what I mean? So I had no real struggles. And then I started expanding and I got like, what was it? I got gifted like the pinstripe calathea. Oh my God, what a demon that plant was. Yeah, so I had that calathea, died. Another calathea, died. I had a bunch of plants that I was trying out for the first time and they died. And a lot of that was a learning curve, right? And I think that this like point that I'm making about you will likely kill plants really does go like it kind of goes hand in hand with like the first point, where if you slow down and you don't buy 5011 at once, you won't end up with 5011 dead plants. So if you kind of take your time, you will skip that heartache of like learning via casualty or having to like remove root rot and all that. I had to do a lot of that in the beginning of this plant journey. That's not so prevalent now, right? Like I rotted an epipremnum. Is it implicit? It's a long leaf epipremnum, and I don't even have it anymore. I struggled with that one. I really, really did. But a lot of that I could have avoided had I slowed down. If I only had the one versus buying like 3 of them, we could have been somewhere. Instead, I had bought like maybe 4 Scindapsuses at one time. I do not have a single Scindapsus, whatever. I do not have a single one at this juncture. Okay, the third point I want to get into is that light is both complicated and easy all at the same time. But there's a lot more to it than I think people are saying. Everyone talks about like, what is bright indirect light? That's so convoluted. Yes, that is the convoluted part, is that you will get an anthurium and they will tell you that it needs bright indirect light, but then you will also get a pothos and it tells you it needs bright indirect light. And then you'll get a Hoya and they'll tell you it needs bright indirect light. Except for a Hoya can withstand far more light than like an anthurium more than likely needs, or could potentially withstand. Additionally, maybe a begonia might need more light than a anthurium, but less light than a Hoya. Do you know what I mean? Like it's actually all very convoluted and complicated. And I think that light is one of those things that comes with experience. Like you have to kind of play around with it. This is really evidence for me in my Hoya shelves, particularly the ones where everything is like sun stressed, but some things are not sun stressed, and me having to play around with turning off one of the double, like, cause I have 2 10-watt Barina bars on each shelf and having to turn one off, right? To like reduce some of the light because maybe I don't like the look of them sun stressed so much. And maybe I want larger leaves versus, like versus very sun stressed foliage. You kind of have to play around with the distance from the grow light. And I think that for me, I'm standing 10 toes. A light meter, the little $20 one, could really make a huge difference in your understanding of how much light to give your plants or how much light they're enjoying. Of course, maybe if you don't have the light meter, you can just play around and move things around. But I just find that it can be really helpful, even with determining whether or not a window is providing a ton of light or not. I think a lot of people think they're giving their plants bright indirect light or bright light in general, and they're truly, truly not. Yeah, I also wanted to say that lighting is also complicated by the fact that it's an industry, especially with like grow lights. And I find a lot of times that people really want to, like, even if they have good experiences with it or not, people often want to recommend the more expensive thing. I have had tremendous, fantastic, sensational success with these Sansi grow lights and these Barina bars. I don't know if I want to actually invest heavily in any of these very expensive grow lights because I'm not seeing that people that are growing with Sansi bulbs and Barina bars are having a completely different growing experience than people that are growing with like Soltech, or, and not to call them out, but like with more expensive brands, right? I'm sure the lights are great and they look aesthetically pleasing and all that. They look good, but that's a high cost. And I realized you can get a similar outcome using different lighting. Now, warmth and temperature, it all kind of depends, but I know for me, the budget is more important than like the coloring of the lighting. So yeah, that's another thing that I think complicates things. And then people think they have to buy very expensive lighting when you really don't. Some of the best anthurium growers out there, like that have like the nicest anthurium and are doing the biggest one, are growing in grow tents that are 100% lit by Barina bars. So there is really there is really no way that you're gonna get me to stray. As a matter of fact, I see that Barina has the track light, and I'm real close to just getting a little track light to install here because I really want to pick the Sansi bulb up. The only reason that I'm holding back on doing that is because I'm wondering if I can't just get like a track light system and use the Sansi bulbs that I already have. So you'll see, yeah, but that's just that's another thing on lighting. The next thing I want to talk about is a lesson that I learned it. Now I'm saying even me, these are all the lessons that I learned. This lesson was a rough one to learn. And at this point, I still have so many substrates. It's wow. Your plant, what you pot your plant in don't gotta be so complicated. It don't. It really, it really doesn't. You really, one, use what works for you, and you do not have to make this into like the most complicated salad mix of whatever. So currently at a juncture where most of my substrates are the same things now. It's like I use the same base core things, and I just vary like the ratios based off what I'm potting things into. I have so much coco coir that there is like almost no, I know I'm not gonna need to buy no coco coir for a long time. Like the begonias and the alocasia and all them things, they're gonna be absolutely fine. It's really because I have so many plants that I have to buy like the parts of the substrate to make it more cost effective in the long run. However, I will say right now I'm trying to keep my mixes down to like 4 things per mix. You know what I mean? So if it's going to be a tree fern mix, then it's tree fern with the perlite, you know what I mean, with the orchiata, and that's really it. Maybe the large perlite is the 4th thing, or charcoal. I like throwing charcoal in things, you know. But that's really, really and truly it. That's really all. That's all your girl got. I don't think that it's necessary for you to have a million and five. Like, you don't have to have pond for some plants and not for. You really and truly just need to figure out which one you enjoy working with, and I promise you, the plants can adjust. The next lesson I learned is that plant prices will decline, and to be more patient than you already were being. I already wasn't trying to be buying plants for $100. You know what I mean? I was already not trying to do that. But I learned to be even more patient, okay? When I tell you, looking at the fact that like their Thai constellation, not even the Burrow Marks flame, right? When I first got into more serious last year, the top of the year, that plant was still $100 some. Right now, Gabriella plants got the plant for like $20 some. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So if I was rushing and was like, oh, I really like it, I can justify the cost, I would have literally been looking around, and there's no way that you could even sell off your plant for, you're not going to make any profit, right? Because the plant literally has reduced its value so exponentially quick. So yeah, for me, I learned that plant prices will decline. That also applies to Hoya, because there are so many very kind, very generous people in the Hoya community. When certain plants hit the market, like some things is going to be harder to get. Like I don't see the Gunungating ghost going down overnight, but I do think at the end of the year, when more people are buying it or more people are sharing it too, that will help like reduce the rarity, which would then bring the cost down as well. But there are plants that I definitely saw at the top of the year being real expensive that came down. So even like the Snow Queen was really expensive, I think, when I first looked into it. And when I even got my Snow Queen, my Latifolia Snow Queen, it cost not $100, but a decent amount of money. And I'm seeing people selling the Snow Queen for yeah, it hurts my feelings. It hurts my feelings to see. So I definitely learned to be patient. I think the only like bucket of plants that I'm noticing it takes longer and that plant prices will always be slightly up, slightly elevated are anthurium, right? So you could find like little baby seedlings for $15 from like certain people if you're just into random hybrids and all that. But certain like species plants, prices be rough. Prices be rough. I'm not gonna hold you. But if you take the time to build community and still exercise patience, you can come across a steal or a price that hits your budget the right way. You know what I mean? So be patient. All right. I keep looking down at the notes. Number 6, the next thing I got written down is that humidity, like light, is also more complicated than people let on. People will simply say you cannot grow anthurium in ambient conditions. False. I have my anthurium in ambient conditions. I used to be people thinking that you can't grow your anthurium in ambient conditions. I have my anthurium in ambient conditions at this current moment. Now, I'm gonna keep staying on this high horse with the anthurium. It's not that you can't do it. It's going to require you to have a different mindset, and there's going to be a different level of work, right? That you got to put in. My anthurium in my cabinet are very easygoing for me, even though they are more complex or more desirable or like even more like rare. Like I have a Carla in my cabinet. However, the cabinet is sensational conditions for it, so they just be doing well. You know, the only way they would flop is if I forgot to water the cabinet for like 2 or 3 weeks. Do you know what I mean? Like I could probably push it to 2 weeks before it goes left in there because it stays nicely humid, etc. Now, outside, I have to be outside. In ambient conditions, I got to be mindful to check the substrate of my anthurium, right? Which is why I have them all potted in clear pots. It's easy for me to see the condensation and all that, but it's a very different approach. So, for example, humidity in my cabinet, I'm thinking about like the humidity in the air, whereas humidity in my like ambient conditions, especially in the wintertime, I can't focus on the humidity in the air. I mean, I put the humidifier on because for my well-being, so I don't wake up dry. But also for the plants, that's going to look like having to make sure their substrate stays evenly moist regularly all the time, like being committed to taking that on for those plants. I also wanted to say it's complicated because I think we collect mostly tropical plants, right? Like if you're watching this, you probably collect tropical plants just like me. And then humidity is often told like you really need high humidity for certain plants. You need to acclimate them into humidity. You need to acclimate down. First of all, I'm gonna tell you something. If I take something out the cabinet, I'm not giving it no hours, seconds, day, gradual. No, it's just coming out. I watch a lot of people that do that. It's just coming out. It's gonna be fine because I'm gonna adjust how I care for it by simply leaving it with a little reservoir of water, and that has gone well for me so far. I've transitioned quite the few, and they doing all right. Now, I think that you can either have focus on the humidity in the air or you can focus on the humidity within the pots. So many people say that, but with anthurium specifically, right? Keeping the substrate moist is going to make up for the fact that your humidity is at 0%. It's not going to be at 0, but you know what I'm saying? It's low. And I think another thing that's really important to consider with humidity and ambient growing for like anthurium when you have low humidity, especially in like the wintertime for people in the Northeast and all that, you have to be okay with stuck leaves, sometimes rough looking leaves as well. I think a lot of people, when their plants get into like the best aesthetic, will come out and be like, look how great, you can grow all of your plants in ambient and it's fine. Something I appreciate is like, Sherry just did a video, Sherry's Leaves, where she was going through her collection and showing like winter leaves. That is way more realistic than some of the things that I've seen other people do, especially because these same people that have made like either Sherry or maybe like FA from Monef's Jungle. Well, now it's just FA, but FA also has made a video too that's more realistic. There is gonna be some crisping. People will make videos showing you their most beautiful, stunning plants, knowing that they just chopped off them crispy leaves, or that they're not showing you the ones that have like giant holes in them. It takes a minute to acclimate the plants down, and you have to be committed to that. If that is not the look you're going for, that's totally fine. But if you're committed to the long game of having certain anthurium in ambient and adjusting them to life in ambient, you might have to go through like a 2, 3, 4 leaves of crisp, but you could get there. It's just playing the longer game, if that makes sense. And I guess that kind of ties into the point that I wrote underneath, which is just you have to adjust your expectations based on the humidity you have. So my ambient anthurium, I do not expect them to be unblemished and to look the same way that my cabinet anthurium look, because they're in high humidity and these are not in high humidity. So I have very, very different expectations. If an anthurium in my cabinet came out with manholes in it, I'm going to be concerned, right? Because there's no reason that should have happened. Whereas an anthurium coming out with like a hole or a little blemish or some issues on the side, I'm not going to be confused because it's literally dry out here. Okay, point number 7, which kind of connects, is that winter is literally the hardest season of plant keeping for me. I swore it was going to get easier because I swore there was going to be less watering. I was wrong, y'all. I was wrong, okay? I have had to provide so much more care to my plants in this winter season than I did during the summer. During the summer, when I tell y'all, I was on a weekly schedule. So I was watering my plants on Saturday mornings. They were mostly typically ready at that point. And the ones that weren't ready, I wasn't really afraid for them to wait till next week. You know what I'm saying? And maybe I would come through and do a little random check. Whereas now I'm finding myself having to walk through my plant collection almost every day. I have to have a time of day where I go through. So either it's going to be before I go to bed, I'm going to just go through and check on them, just look at the tops of the substrate, just check on them, because it is really, they're struggling to maintain the moisture because it's still hot in my house. However, it is significantly less humid than in the summer. So because of that, plants are drying out more. As I've gotten into anthurium, this is the worst. Oh my gosh, winter is the worst for ambient growing anthurium. It is the worst. Oh, hey, If you live in a really hot place, I can see winter being better for you if you don't have harsh winters. But if you got like northeast winters or Midwest winter, you know what I'm talking about? Like a real winter, it's not the time for the anthurium. They struggle. They struggle. They struggle. They like the cooler temps are good for expanding leaves. So like fall and spring, probably the best times for anthurium. But the winter, the dryness of the air really be taking them out, you know? And if you're not on top of it, you got to be really, really, really on top of it. Missing half a watering will throw them off. And that has been stressful for me. Also, with my Hoyas not, so the anthurium drying out fast. Heavy drinkers, it seems. The Hoyas, though, my Hoyas are not drying out as fast. That's kind of stressing me out. And then also, winter has brought forth and brought out the pestilence. Pests, okay? I guess, this actually goes and segues into point 8. Let's just talk about point 8. You will get pests. You will. I think I'm having to accept that I will get pests, but a learning that I have is that I don't have to do what everybody else is doing. So for example, there are people that will get pests and they are going to endure. I am not going to endure. In fact, my next video talking about my Hoya, because I'm going through it right now with the Hoyas on one of my shelves. I just discovered some unfortunate occurrences in some of these pots, but I'm not planning to spend my time like excessively going through it. I'm planning to restart a ton of Hoya, right? You can choose to just discard the soil, soak the plants in that little peroxide water bath. Yeah. Scrub them with the little toothbrush to get them out of there, you know what I mean? And move on. And that's my plan. You can also choose to utilize a systemic, which is also the key to success. For me, some people might want to, release the bugs into their house. That's not me. I'm trying to get rid of bugs, not add more bugs. I cannot do that. So truly, you will get pests, and how you treat them does not have to be aligned with the people that you maybe have learned from. Knowing that you will get pests, it's kind of, the learning is you have to figure out what you're willing to do and how you're willing to deal with pests. I am willing to do systemic. I am willing to restart plants. I'm willing to throw plants out. I am not willing to invest 3 to 6 months eradicating pests in the long term. That is just not for me. Okay, now number 9, you don't need to keep every plant. This kind of also segues. You do not need to keep every plant. I learned this through my own experiences purging plants. And I think sometimes when you're purging plants, people are like, oh, it's probably because your collection is getting overwhelming. No, you actually only have to keep the plants that you like. You can sell them. You could give them to family. You could put them on the plant porch. You know what I'm saying? It's people that do stuff like bring the plants to their plant giveaways or whatever. You can do whatever you got to do with it. You could even throw them out. Okay. Yeah. Do what you got to do, but you do not have to keep every plant. The minute you feel like, I don't actually really want this, you don't have to keep it. You could let her go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that is a philosophy that I'm truly taking on, right? I am recondoing my collection at this current juncture. I'm probably going to be doing that once a month. I have plans for my collection for this year. I have a vision for what I want my space to look like. And if the plant isn't making me feel good and it's not fitting in the vision, that's okay. It could go. You know what I'm saying? And at this point, I've been doing well with being able to like sell most of them. But honestly, if they don't sell, that's also fine. You could literally just get rid of them. That's okay. And learning your limit on what you can maintain is very important, because if you're going to keep buying plants but you've reached your limit, you need to be comfortable with getting rid of plants that you don't actually want. And if you come to a moment where you're like, I can't even find one plant that I want to get rid of, I can't tell you, you know what I'm saying? I can't tell you what's right or what's wrong, but I do know that is going to be self-sabotage. If you know you've hit your limit and you're going to keep adding new plants to the collection, that's just going to create burnout. So yeah, for me, I've learned that you don't got to keep every plant. You could throw them out. Find you a few plant friends. Like at this point, I'm really happy to have started the Discord, because moving forward, if there are plants that are healthy, pest-free, etc., and I know I don't want it, I could just share it with one of y'all. You know what I mean? Like there are so many ways, but you do not have to keep anything in your house plant-wise and in general, truly, that you really don't want. Okay? All right. We getting there. Point number 10. And I think this might be one of the more important ones too. Learning your environment is probably the most important thing that you could do. In this last year, And now that I've made it through to winter and we're here and we're almost over, I've already done spring, summer, fall with the plants. I've learned that learning my environment seasonally is very, very important. I know that in spring and summer and in the early fall, my humidity is so sensational that I could turn these humidifiers off. The minute we hit April showers, humidifiers going back on lockdown. They going away. I ain't even keeping them where they at. I'm finna put them away. You know what I'm saying? With the same like humidifier thing on lock though, I know that for winter, for my well-being too. Because first of all, I had got humidifiers as a suggestion initially from my kid's doctor, actually, because he needs a humidifier in the nighttime. And we had one downstairs for him. But in the wintertime, for me and for the plants, we do need a little moisture in the air. We gotta turn the humidifiers on. It is what it is. But yeah, so learning your environment is important. Learning the temperature of your environment is important. When people think about overwatering, they're often thinking that, oh, that means that you gave it too much water. Sometimes it's that the combination of light. So in the wintertime, if your plants are hanging in a window, you probably need to give them less water because they're not going to get as much light or as bright of light during the wintertime than they would get during the year. But for somebody like me who grows mostly with grow lights, that actually isn't going to be the case, right? Because my temperature is consistent. It's always 70 something degrees in here. But then the lighting is also consistent. They're getting the same amount of light, but now it's drier, which means that actually for me in a winter time, they need more water versus in the summertime when it's more humid, there's more moisture in the air, they might not need as much water. So learning that as well. So understanding your lighting, understanding your temperatures, understanding your humidity, and even understanding the kinds of pests that are like in your area, that's very, very important. Yeah, that's really all I got to say on environment. Is learning that will be the key to you figuring out what plants you can grow or what plants you're willing to grow. It's not even what you can, because people grow anthurium in the driest of conditions, in the hottest places, etc., and grow cacti in the coldest places ever. So it really just kind of, learning your environment is going to determine how you have to care for the plants that you want to grow. Okay, now point number 11. I feel like I have to reiterate this, but patience is key, not just with waiting for plant prices to come down. I've learned that I need to be patient when it comes to even my plants in general, and realizing that they are fully living things. I know that they're living things. I've always known that. We all have known that. But I think when a plant goes downhill or something happens to a plant, it's really easy to lose patience with it. At least I do. So for example, past me with my forgetti-eye hybrid, when it started like acting a little weird, would have just been very quick to be like, okay, well, she's not for this house. That's not necessarily true. I needed to just exhibit patience. I separated it. I'm trying something new, and I'm going to see how that goes. With rooting plants out, exhibiting patience is very much so key. And then even with like plants growing, exhibiting patience, like they go through things, they might have pests, they might get infections, etc., and like having the patience to watch them grow. Not every plant is going to be a really fast grower. And then I think that patience key, knowing yourself, is key too. But yeah, so patience is very much so key. Number 12 is that you don't have to like what's trendy or buy what's trendy. I will notice that I feel like one of the things I really, really want to make sure I emphasize in my collection this year is having things that I like, things that I want, okay? Things that I enjoy, and not things that I feel like are just like trendy. That's really, I think, what makes me love my begonias a lot, is that I just got them because I like them and they grow well, right? It doesn't have to be like, oh, this is a trendy begonia, everyone's got this one, or it's a trendy plant, everyone. And it also doesn't mean that I can't like things that are trendy. I can, but I think, for example, and I'm going to go into, like, for example, Hoya, right? Like, you don't have to like silvery Hoya just because silvery Hoya are like all the rave, right? You don't have to like big veiny Hoyas because they're all the rave. You can like the basic things, or you can like more complicated things, but you don't have to go based off of the trend. And if you're only doing that, I would also check the shopping addiction that you might could have. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we all be going through it. We do be going through it, but make sure you check that, because so many people's collections, like I feel like the nicest collections, not even in terms of aesthetic, I just mean the nicest collections and the coolest hobbyists are the people that literally just have what they like. That could be a range of things. They be having a whole lot of hella begonia, random cacti, random ripsalis here. You just have to like what you like, not what other people like. And maybe there's going to be overlap there, and that's great, but focus on what you enjoy for real. And then finally, finding joy in this hobby is really what keeps the hobby going. So if you, for example, you know that you don't necessarily enjoy watering, adding a little element of joy into it, like listening to music or listening to a podcast, can really make you tap back into that experience and make you enjoy it. I know some people really hate watering. I don't actually hate watering. It's probably the easiest thing I do. I think sometimes in the winter, I've had moments where I'm like, I don't necessarily want to water, but that's because I've had to water a lot more in this winter than I normally have to, um, outside of winter. So there's that. But like connecting, layer some joy into things, right? For example, I repotted a lot of plants off camera the other day, a bunch of anthurium, and I simply just chose to take the moment to like really soak it in. I played some music, I had a little something going, and then I was repotting. Then my mama called me. I spent time chit chapper while repotting the plants. I enjoyed myself. It was calming. I swept up the dirt and put everything away after. It was all good. Finding the joy within the plants is key. So, with all that being said, I appreciate y'all for sticking around with me while I just chatted through some of my learnings, shared some, I don't know if it was really advice, but share some things I learned that I recommend y'all do if y'all want to do it, and that I'm also going to hold myself to. The next video coming up is more than likely going to be a very, very sad case, and a reset of a good majority of my Hoyas, unfortunately, a very good majority. Of my Hoyas are likely going to be reset, bar the ones that are trellised. Any of my trellised Hoyas, we're gonna probably do a different video of what I plan to do to ensure that those are good. But we're gonna be resetting Hoyas, treating plants, and getting our collection back to a good space. Okay, put a good thought out there for my plants, because I'm experiencing my first more serious pest issue. I don't think spider mites are very, very serious. I truly don't consider them most of the time. But yeah, just put a thought out there for your girl. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.